Alright, my article is Fearing Fictions by Kendall Walton. Let's get started. So Walton's main question is, do people have psychological attitudes towards fictional entities? He believes that they do not. He comes up with this example of Charles and his fear of the slime, where Charles is watching a movie, a horror movie, where the slime is coming towards the camera, towards the viewer, and it gives Charles quite a fright. And Charles believes that he is physically, yes, afraid of the slime, whereas Walton does not believe so. He thinks that Charles is not afraid of the slime, but his make-believe self is afraid of the slime in a make-believe world, called the make-believe distinction. I'll see how we get to that more with that. So we have the argument layout. 1 is the intro, of course. 2 and 3 seem to be the body of where he presents his argument, and 4 through 7 seems to be the support for his conclusion and why his argument makes sense, according to Walton. So Walton in 2 states that Charles is not afraid, and he gives with the caveats of this quasi-fear and that Charles is not deceived. Should that be the case, there are some objections that Charles half believes or is at least half afraid, that Charles has an internal gut feeling, some sort of primal response where he knows that he is afraid, or maybe possibly a momentary fear. But Walton offers rebuttals to each of these objections, and he states that fear only of the depiction of the slime is what exists for Charles, not of the slime itself. Then in 3, he talks about how if Charles isn't afraid, how is the experience to be characterized. There's all fictional truths are man-made. There's 2 ways of doing it. You can simply imagine it as true or accidentally imagine it. And the second kind is called the sort of principle of in force. It's what participants recognize in the make-believe world. There's a lot of reasons why that would be there, so let's move on. 4, Charles is not afraid, but an actor impersonating himself in a game of make-believe. So this would be the mental states generate make-believe truths in a fictional world. The make-believe truths come from Charles' thought and feeling as well as actions. Charles has no audience, of course, so the observable behavior is not meant to show anyone else that he is make-believably afraid. Moving on. 5. So Charles' acceptance of the principles of make-believe. The principle of make-believe, when accepted, means that the participant accepts it in force. He believes that is a principle that's in force in their make-believe world. So Walton believes that Charles understands the relevant principle, and that there are 2 worlds, 2 fictional worlds. That's where the 2 worlds theory comes from. The public fiction, so that might be created from the movie that we all experience, from that work of art, and then the private fiction, which we all have, Charles' private fiction. And only in this private fiction does Charles fear the slime. Charles can participate automatically or deliberately in these. And 6, so mental states resulting from make-believe truths. Charles isn't afraid, but it is in some distinct emotional state. Charles actually experiences his make-believe fear. It's not some special kind of fear, but it's what he experiences such that make-believedly is a real fear. Charles experiences this fear as though it were himself. So in this make-believe world, he is in this make-believe world. He is fictional at this point, and so this fictional version of himself is feeling this fictional fear. There is no suspension of disbelief, as Walton says. We go down to the fiction's level. We don't bring it up to ourselves. We don't suspend belief. We're not doing anything like that. The value of fiction makes sense only under Walton's theory, according to Walton, because otherwise there's so many problems that wouldn't be able to be solved. Some of those problems, as Walton says, he says that his theory has the capacity to handle many puzzles, 2 of which he brings up. The conflicting desires and multiple readings puzzles. Conflicting desires is where a person could have 2 wholehearted desires while reading fiction or experiencing it. Conflicting desires, such as wanting a main character to die or not to die, and they may be conflicting, and that would be a problem. But under Walton's theory, it wouldn't be a conflicting desire, because one would be the true desire of the person, and one would be the desire of the make-believe person. So we're talking about 2 different entities almost at this point. And then there's the multiple readings or viewings, which is where you read or watch a media multiple times, and you can still do it again and again. And so how could that work with suspense if we already know what's going to happen? Well, according to Walton, that's going to be fine, because each time things are going to change for the person, and you're going to make believe that you don't know the ending, and so the suspense is going to work there. So the make believe person will not know. So Walton's argument is pretty solid, but I'll hope to offer some objections to it.